When I was 15 years old, I made out with this chick. Her name was Katrin. She was from Switzerland. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. Now, I'm not so interested in the European Union. Let's take a look. Carney is. Canada's pretty far away from Europe to be a part of the European Union. Something fishy is going on. I thought the old world order was just fine. I'll take that back, please. Anyhow, these are the Europeans ready to embrace Canada is one of their own. That's what it sounds like to me. Let's take a look. Let me know what you think in the comments.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Donald Trump. The US president's behavior has practically turned his neighbor Canada and the European Union into political lovers. Trump's threat of the 51st federal state was echoed in Europe by talk of the 28th member state of the EU. This week, the leaders of the EU and Canada met in Brussels for a summit, which also focused on defense. But that's not all. The bilateral security and defense pact that was signed here is the most far-reaching agreement that Europe has ever entered into with a third country. Now, in view of this, is the dream of Canada joining the EU really a dream, a pipe dream, or is there at least some reality to it, Kathleen?
Let's find out.
There is reality into that. It's not possible under the treaty, but the treaty is only the treaty. It can be changed, right? I think the European Union as a concept should not only be restricted to the European continent. It's a far-reaching dream, but having that dream means that we can get so close together that they practically a part of the European Union. And I believe it would. Europe should learn now that we need to team up with real democracies that are close to our values. And Canada is one of them.
By the way, there's, again, according to polls that I like to quote here, there's a large majority, you wouldn't believe it, in Canada for a closer connection. But now let's hear from one of the main players in this whole dossier, Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney, on how he characterizes the new relationship with Europe. Here he is. Take a listen.
So we're meeting now in that context in, as you just said, in hard times. We might say even a hinge moment of history. We can nostalgically look back and long for the old order to somehow return, or we can build a new one with purpose and partnership. And so today this is a new era of cooperation. Our strategic Canada-EU or EU-Canada strategic partnership for the future will build a new and deeper relationship that brings us closer together from defense to digital, from supply chains to security. And this will make us both more resilient and more prosperous.
Yeah, more resilient, more prosperous. Matthew, is Canada about to be replacing the US as our best friend in North America?
Well, I don't think Canada's ever going to be a 28th member state, nor is it going to be a 51st state of the US. But this should be welcomed. Yeah, Canada has always remained a vital ally, important relationship with the United Kingdom through the Commonwealth. So, of course, this agreement is significant. Mark Carney is probably one of the newest, but probably one of the more impressive leaders on the world stage. A masterclass in political comebacks, winning the Canadian election. I think recovering a 20-point deficit for the Liberal Party in Canada. This is an individual experienced in European diplomacy, former governor of the Bank of England in the United Kingdom. So I think this is somebody, a centrist, arguably, somebody we can work with. And I don't think it should be a zero-sum game either, by the way. I think we can pursue these new relationships while still trying to recover and build on our historic relationship with the United States.
Once the US comes back, what about Canada then? Is this partnership, this security pact that has been signed, and it is quite something, is this irreversible?
I think so it is, and it's good for the EU to pursue, multiple agreements. Let's say we have problems with the US now imposing tariffs on all blocs in the world. Let's say that we should show the opposite, that we conclude partnership agreements with many blocs around the world, and then you look first at I mean, similar countries like Canada, like we've done an agreement with, for example, Japan. We've negotiating one with Australia. We've concluded one with New Zealand. We're hopefully having one with Mercosur and so on. That is extremely important. But one thing I would add, it's fantastic to have it, but we know we concluded CETA in 2017, the Canada-Europe trade agreement, which is still not ratified by 20 member states.
Yeah.
So we can have the best of intentions, the Commission can have the best of intentions, but we must make sure that all EU countries are behind that.
Kathleen, the only politician here at the table. What about the future of CETA? Will it be? Does this new agreement will lead to a sort of push towards ratification?
Yes, I absolutely believe that. There's been some neglectance in the member states on how important free trade agreements are. And by the way, free trade agreement is a little bit a wrong name because it's exactly the opposite. We make agreements to make it a regulated trade agreement. We talk about climate, social issues. It's a full-fledged agreement that is in favor of both parties. And that goes for CETA. We're also negotiating with Indonesia. And I believe that there's much more support now to go a long way on that.
If not with Canada, with whom else should
course.
we get into such a partnership, Matthew?
We share the same values. I think arguably the same vision for the world. There's a huge amount of European diaspora in Canada. This agreement makes sense. I think you make an excellent point about finishing what already has yet to be completed. I mean, it is a joke that 10 national parliaments have yet, 8 years on, failed to ratify what is a gold standard trade agreement in CETA. So I share both of your views that hopefully this acts as a catalyst to finally get CETA. I don't necessarily share the entirety of what Carney said. This doesn't need to be a completely new chapter. It can build on old alliances and act as an insurance policy for our collective security architecture going forward. But yes, I think it's a good agreement.
Can Europe and Canada together be strong enough to oppose an aggressive trade policy by Trump?
I would hope that Europe learns something from Canada and certainly from Mr. Carney and the way he has countered the Americans, and he has been extremely clear in his election campaign towards Trump, saying you won't take our people or resources or land. I say waiting to see this from the EU, let's say, to have a very strong statement against the US and what they're doing and against the economic policy of the Trump administration. Because we've seen Carney, he said it, and a week later he was invited to the White House. You have to be tough to be listened to by Trump.
Great. Wonderful closing words.
Oh, yeah. All right, gang, are you interested in being a part of the European Union as those people said you were? They can't speak for me, and I'm letting people know. They're not speaking for my vote. Anyways, maybe these foolish liberal voters and the corrupt liberal federal government, maybe that. But the rest of Canada, more than half, aren't interested in this. Anyhow, what are you going to do? Trying to keep you informed. Aaron Canadian Looney trying to hit 30,000 subs. Help me get there. Thank you for watching this video. We'll catch you in the next one. Later, gang.
What?